Things once spoken, now buried in silence. But they wait for someone to return, just to release the last word. A footstep, too late. An embrace, left hanging. A sentence, never spoken. The echo of a word, half formed, still clinging to the air. And sometimes, we don't return to remember. We return so the heart can step out of a waltz that never ended. The room held its breath, like ash, drifting, refusing to fall. And his chest followed, tight, refusing to exhale. We return so something can finally let go. Early morning, mist still clung to the window frame. The damp carried a faint iron tang, the kind left on fingers after touching cold keys. Thomas stepped into the living room. No lights, no sound. Faint light slipped through the thin curtains and sank onto the faded wooden table. Like ash settling on a table no one dared to wipe. No ticking clock, no voices. Only light, threading through every crack, as if even time had forgotten his name. Among old newspapers and unopened letters, a pale yellow envelope lay tilted. Not placed, but waiting for the exact moment he would walk in. No postmark, no sender's name, yet it was there, precisely, as if someone had already read his mind. The paper was slightly damp, a faint scent of ash. Not smoke, only what smoke leaves behind, like the smell of clothes pulled too soon from a fire. And the handwriting, not unfamiliar, but more like a forgotten dream. You should come back. Something is still waiting. The festival is near. The last line shook, as if written by a hand with fever, or by someone afraid they wouldn't make it in time. Thomas stood still for a long time. His hand froze, as if he had touched something that didn't belong here. For a moment, he wasn't sure this was the first time he'd read the letter. The familiarity didn't come from the words, but from this exact moment. His hand on the paper, heart skipping, light slanting across the desk. All of it felt like a scene he had already lived. More than once. A thin chill slid down his spine. Not because of the letter, but because he'd done this before, in another life, where the letter wasn't the only thing that came back. He didn't remember any place called the festival. No friends in the countryside. No one had written to him like this. Not in years. He was sure of it. But something inside his chest disagreed. A faint thump in his ribs. Unclear if it was memory or just an old reflex waking up. Thomas folded the last newspaper, turned it face down on the table. Headline, "Lion After the War." Beneath his hand, everything blurred. He packed a few things, or pretended to. No suitcase, no map. Just that morning when he left Lyon. No one saw him. No one was told. Only the early wind witnessed his departure. Only the wind. remembers, and it brushed his sleeve, as if to remind him. The old jeep roared. Through sharp mountain turns, Thomas unfolded a military map. To the east, only blank space. But in his mind, a name appeared, like a memory never stored. Waltz. No such place existed. Never had. Never should. But still, he was driving toward it. Every time he reached a fork, his finger twitched, a movement too precise, as if a script was replayed. No thinking, just turn left. Wind hissed softly. It carried the smell of wet soil and rusted iron, something that had once soaked in blood and decayed in silence. A narrow curve, then a sign appeared by the road. Waltz. The letters had just been painted, the brushstrokes still fresh. The scent of paint floated faintly, light but clear. Beneath it, the dry, cold smell of char. Someone had just been here, and maybe hadn't left yet. But the wooden board beneath was different. Rotten, gray, cracked, like it had burned before, still standing, only because someone's memory refused to let it go. Thomas raised his camera, reflexively, snapped a shot. The shutter clicked too loud, like something breaking, not a camera working. When he looked again, the sign appeared broken in half. The word Waltz, smudged and fading. And at the edge of the frame, a figure. White dress, long hair covering her face, tilted to one side. Unclear whether the wind moved her hair or it slid down, like a scene remembering itself. She wasn't looking at the camera, but she stood exactly at the frame's edge, as if she knew she would be captured, not blurred, not shaking, too still, like a figure held under glass, as if she had developed there from a memory that wasn't his. A thin chill slid down his spine. His hand tightened on the camera, like holding something that did not belong to this world. His arm didn't tremble, but his heart missed a beat, as if the lens itself was looking back. He lowered the camera. The trees whispered once, then shut their mouths. He looked around. Only trees. No cars, no voices, no one. The wind brushed past his shoulder and then stopped. His vision blurred, not from the sun, but from a feeling he couldn't place. Something old, something that said he had seen her before, but where? No one remembered. The wind came again, this time from the other direction. It brushed his collar, not cold, just enough to make the fabric shift, like a skinless hand, testing whether he had truly returned. Cold, damp, the way skin remembers water long after drowning. The village appeared after a bend in the road, hidden deep in the mountains. No name, no signposts, and seemingly never marked on any map. The dirt path was unusually quiet, No cars, no children, only a few wooden doors, left slightly ajar, tilted, sagging beneath the weight of memories untouched for years. Thomas walked slowly. The bag across his shoulder felt light, almost weightless. Each step he took matched the rhythm of some old recording, playing silently beneath his feet. On a porch, an old man sat. He didn't lift his head, didn't blink. His lips trembled faintly, but no breath escaped. He raised one hand, pointed in a direction. No words, no questions, as if the gesture had been pre-programmed. Thomas nodded, though he wasn't sure what he had just agreed to. The wooden house leaned against the slope. The attic door was unlocked, left slightly open, as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, a small room. Light cut across the space through a side window. It settled softly on the white bedsheet. Not a single crease. On the table, an embroidered handkerchief. Red thread, still curled, as if pulled through the fabric just seconds ago. The needle paused mid-stitch. No hand remained to complete it. Its eye caught the light. A silent glint, like it was waiting for the hand that would never return. The dresser paint had peeled. A silver frame sat face down, tarnished black, but the dust ring around it was perfectly clean, as if someone had once picked it up, stared for a long time, then placed it back, like part of a ritual. Thomas stepped closer. His hands didn't remember the frame, but his fingers stopped at the exact spot. An instinct too old to be named. His eyes landed in the same place, a small scratch on the silver edge, where a gaze had once rested for a very long time. No dust, no wind, no old smell. Everything was too precise, too flawless, like a room kept under glass, not remembered, preserved. Thomas stood still. A chill slid down his back. There was no mirror, but he could feel someone behind him. Not a shadow, but a memory, with shape, watching him from the edge of reality. His eyes stopped at the windowsill. A few traces of ash, scattered. The wind slipped in, tilted the ash gently to one side. He leaned down, touched it. Not hot, but still warm, at his fingertips. Not from the sun. The warmth sank into his nails, deeper than memory, but not enough to call alive, as if it had just held the last trace of someone before the memory was erased. Night fell quickly. The oil lamp swayed slowly to a breeze from nowhere. No insects, no footsteps, only the sound of his heart beating off rhythm to something he wasn't sure belonged to him. Thomas lay on the bed, exhausted, breath shallow, broken, heat bled from him, like iron left too near a flame, but his limbs were numb, ice cold, as if the nerves had been cut cleanly from the root. Something not him was clearing space, preparing to take over. What remained? A faint knocking from inside his ribs, as if bone had grown hollow and someone wanted out. Then, everything blurred. No lines, no night, just an old reel, tugged backward through its own light. Light shattered like glass. Sound echoed, then dissolved, as if a projector faltered. Light fraying, sound unstitched. He saw himself lying on a stretcher, surrounded by ash-gray woods. No motion, but the back of his head was stuck to coarse fabric, cold like scorched iron. No one around, only breath, and a presence drawing closer. A figure leaned down. Hair covered half her face. It wasn't clear if it was the wind or something else that brushed against his cheek. Cold, soft, familiar. The kind of touch you remember after the hand is gone, like a hand that once knew him well and once promised to come back. A woman's voice, barely a whisper, not heard by the ears, not echoing in the mind, more like a bell, striking straight into his spine. No words, just a deep pulse, enough to make his chest tighten. When you return, remember the old place. Something is still there, unfinished. The world began to tremble, not from emotion, but from something else, unnamed. Time was rewinding, pulled back by a hand with no shape. She vanished, dissolving into thick smoke, as if burned from the inside, leaving no ash to name her. Thomas jolted upright, but his mind was still trapped in the last frame. It wasn't memory being rewound, it was him being replayed. All around, a silence too complete, as if the world hadn't turned the sound back on after the dream. His forehead, drenched in sweat. The wind outside still hadn't changed direction. The lamp still swayed. The sun hadn't risen. The lamp oil clung to the air, faint, bitter. Then he noticed the pillow beneath his head still held an indentation. Not his. His right hand was clenched around something. He opened it. An embroidered handkerchief. Red thread, half-stitched. Thread loose, never knotted. But the pattern was a flower he had never seen. A flower no book had ever named. Yet his chest ached with its memory. Morning light slipped through the cracks in the door. The wood creaked faintly, as if adjusting to a weight that wasn't there. Outside, the valley remained silent, as if time itself was waiting for someone to play the next reel. Thomas opened his eyes. His body felt as heavy as stone. His head, as if it had just escaped a dream that lasted longer than a lifetime. His right hand still clenched around the embroidered handkerchief, but now It was dry, like brittle paper. The red thread had faded, edges frayed. The thread ends bristled, like hair that never learned to lie flat. In one corner, a folded crease remained, perfect, precise, as if someone had folded it carefully after something that never happened. He sat up. No questions, no surprise. He opened the nightstand drawer. A movement, too practiced, like the habit of someone else who had once lived in this body. Inside, a leather notebook, worn, pages yellowed with age. The first page was already written. You once promised. But every promise must be remembered at the right time. The handwriting tilted, unsteady, as if written by a trembling hand or a mind that no longer belonged to itself. The ink bled slightly, like veins spreading on skin. Just below the text, a brown circular stain, spreading outward, the color, like old rust. A metal smell, faint and wrong for morning, too sharp to ignore, too old to explain. Not clear if it was blood or ink burned by fire. But Thomas realized it wasn't his eyes that recognized it. It was his skin. Not through memory, but through something soaked deep into his fingertips. He reached out. It was cold, cold, like a pane of glass frosted in summer. Not the room, not the weather. Cold, in the wrong season, the wrong substance. But it seeped into every cell, as if he had just been submerged into a memory, too strong to bear. For a moment, he thought he heard a voice, or smelled smoke, somewhere close. All of it, just echoes of a half-burnt page. He turned to the next sheet. The ink was smudged. Many lines stopped mid-sentence, as if the writer had forgotten what they were saying. One page had been torn out, jagged edges left behind in a rush. Beneath the thin paper, a faint imprint of a photo once kept there. His fingers moved to flip further, but his body froze, like his eyes were about to see something his heart wasn't ready for. He didn't turn the page, not because he feared what came next, but because he already knew. He hadn't survived it last time. His eyes stayed still, and his heart skipped again. Unclear if it was from what he just read, or because his body remembered something. He had seen this page before, not with his eyes. Before his mind could name it, his body already mourned it. That night, the square was empty. No voices, no footsteps, no wind. But the candles had already been placed along each brick, each step, each forgotten corner, as if someone had spent years preparing for a moment they would never live to see. No one lit them, no trace of fire. And yet, every flame was burning, faint, still, already lit in some past, that refused to die. No smoke, no soot, only the faint wax-sweet smell, clinging too long, like breath on skin. Each flame burned to its own rhythm, never together, not speaking, just counting down towards something with no beginning. Wax tears had dried in paths no hand could explain, as if memory itself was ticking toward its final loop. Thomas stepped into the center. His old shoes met the stone, and the sound rang out, too clear, too lonely. The echo landed in his ribs, not just the stone, as if the air had been emptied. Just to remember this exact step, a thin chill climbed his spine. No wind, no scent of ash, no shadows. But he knew. She was here. She didn't appear. She didn't speak. Only the dark began to take shape. Each step she placed landed precisely where it had once landed. Long ago. No eye contact, no hesitation, just steps, slow, steady, like a reel replaying for the 10,000th time, hoping this time it might end differently. The space between them, only a reach away. Thomas raised his hand, so did she. But they didn't touch, didn't close the gap, didn't pull away. Two hands, suspended, forever unfinished. Close enough to touch, far enough to last a lifetime. Just enough space for the wind to pass between and take with it what was never meant to return. They stood there, surrounded by flames that did not flicker. Inside, a night too still for insects. Inside the waltz, no one played, no one composed. And yet, it went on. Then, a moment. His body moved, not his will. His calf tensed, his foot stepped back. One beat. Exactly. As if the motion had been etched into his bones. But when his heel touched the stone, there was no sound, as if something had muted the world, so memory could speak louder. Silence first, then the memory. Every movement existed only inside a memory no one living could still hold. A film strip, reduced to negatives. The silver wouldn't take. Not this time. And now, he was the last light left to project it. He had danced this before, in this square, with her, with that hand, with that heartbeat. But last time, they never finished. His body stepped back, but his heart didn't. His heart remained extended, waiting for a turn that never came. But she didn't move. Not this time. She stayed still, hand still raised. But her gaze looked through him, past him, as if he'd missed something. A beat, a word, a promise. And now, the waltz had chosen to spin without him. It didn't need a lead anymore. A breeze slipped past, cold, but no longer cutting, like an old song once played wrong, now echoing, only in the ears of those who still remember how it was meant to end, and every wrong note still hummed beneath his skin. The next morning, the room hadn't changed. No added dust, no new light. Everything stood still, as if last night had only happened inside him and never touched the physical world. Thomas stepped toward the vanity. He wasn't searching for anything. He simply opened the drawer, as if his hand had always known to do it. Inside, a photograph, half burned, its edges blackened, crumbling. Not like fire damage, but like fragments of memory, burned away slowly by things never allowed to be remembered. The black dust smeared across his fingertip, staining but refusing to wipe away. A sour tang, as if time had been fixed with the wrong chemical. In the photo, him, or someone who looked like him, standing in the square, his hand reaching forward toward a woman, approaching him. White dress, long hair, but half of her body had vanished into the burned section of the photo. The space between them wasn't distance. It was a moment lost to static. It felt like breath held too long. A pause stretched into eternity. A part of the waltz that was never fully captured. They weren't looking at each other, just standing there, separated by a single beat, like the waltz had started, but never turned. Thomas flipped the photo over, a slanted, unsure line of ink. Next time, we will dance. I still remember. The handwriting wasn't his, but when his finger slid across it, his skin went cold. Colder than memory, colder than forgetting. His hand pulled slightly, not from temperature, but from something deeper. A reflex that matched perfectly with an image that no longer existed, as if his body remembered before his mind caught up. No dust clung. Ash never does, when it has chosen what to keep. The photo slipped from his hand. It made no sound, but he did. The floor kept its silence. His ribs didn't. His chest clenched, as if he had just lost something that never had a shape to begin with. Thomas stood still. The morning light slanted through the curtain, but the shadows didn't move. His body was ready to leave, but his mind remained trapped inside a frame that had never been completed. Some frames never hold a picture, only the ache of one. Not because the sun hadn't risen, but because this room had chosen to hold time still, at the moment before everything repeated. And this time, there would be no next time, no chance to be late. The square would turn, with or without him. That night, Thomas dreamed again, no longer vague. It felt like an old film, with light, with sound, and the scent of damp earth just turned over from a moss-covered, ashen memory. He stood with her beneath an old chestnut tree. The fallen leaves blanketed the ground like layers of decayed ash, never swept away. The soil exhaled a damp, cold sweetness with a faint metal tang. She held a small tin box, one corner dented, as if it had once been gripped too tightly in the final moment of a promise never spoken. She knelt down, her fingers dug into the soil. No hesitation. The earth gave way too easily, like it had been turned and turned never left in peace, as if she had found the same stone 100 times before, always waiting for him to return. She buried the box, slowly, then looked up, no smile, no words. Just looked at him. Not a promise, not yet, only a place where it could live. He wasn't sure if she had spoken, or if it was something he had once dropped in a forgotten memory. If one day you return and your heart remembers before your mind does, find it. Early morning, Thomas left the room. No one saw him, and he wasn't sure there was anyone left to tell. He crossed a fog-covered field, followed a slope down the hill, where two trees framed a shallow dip in the earth. There stood an old stone, a rough T etched into the surface. Not clear whose it was, not clear how long it had been there, but he knew this was where to dig. He didn't remember ever being here, but his hands knew exactly where to start. Each scoop too precise, as if already performed in another life. The soil was damp, soft like it had been dug once, then covered again. A long, long time ago. He found the box, still dented. Ash clung to its edge. Inside were things no one dared name. An embroidered handkerchief, red thread, never tied. The loose thread curled upward, like it was still searching for a hand. Two tiny sheets of paper, the writing blurred, bound with dried straw. A photo with no image, only a silver blur, as if whatever memory once lived there had been soaked away by tears. No names, no dates, nothing to prove they ever belonged to this world. But his fingers knew how to open the box, knew how to hold each item, and knew they shouldn't be held too long. Not heavy, but the longer he held them, the louder his knuckles remembered. Every crack of bone felt like the soil groaning in reply, as if he was waking something that should never have been brought back. Each item carried a fragment of a dream never fully awakened, and keeping them too long felt like holding on to a promise that had never been spoken. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from muscle memory, as if every fiber still remembered how to hold them, even though the person who once did was long gone. No one reminded him. No one stopped him. But his body understood. He folded everything back, placed them in the same order, buried them as before, carefully but firmly. Some things must be kept so someone can return, as if holding on any longer would stop someone from returning. Next time. Some promises can only exist once, and Thomas knew he had just let one slip away. When he returned, the lamp in his room was already on. He didn't know when. On the table, the same embroidered handkerchief from the night before was now fully stitched, the thread even, tight. And when he reached out to touch it, He noticed the needle was still gently stuck in the edge of the fabric, like it had blinked mid-stitch. Next to it, a letter. The paper, still damp with ink. The handwriting, familiar. But he couldn't place it. Hello. The festival is near. I'm still waiting. That night, no more dreams, no more her, no soft laughter under the eaves, no hand brushing his cheek when the night fell, no waltz waiting in the center of the room, only a silent room, the silence pressed against his teeth, thick, metallic, and a quiet light, as if the lamp had burned since some long-forgotten memory. And no one was brave enough to reach out and turn it off. Thomas opened his eyes. Stillness. The window, cracked open. No wind, no scent, no trace of any presence that had ever lived here. Only emptiness. So clean, it refused to let memory stick. No prints on the sill, no scent to follow. He sat up. No lights, no reason. In the far corner of the yard, a scrap of white dress, caught on a dry branch. The branch bent slightly, as if reluctant to let go. The fabric, not damp with dew, the hem still dusty, as if it had just slipped away from a dance left unfinished, never given a name. He could step forward, reach for it, hold it, but he didn't, because he knew if he kept it this time, would she return? Or would it be him who never left again? Just one step, that's all it takes. Enough to make someone never come back. What you keep keeps you, and sometimes it doesn't let you go. The wind hissed through the window crack, long, cold, hollow, like a hand waving goodbye that no one had the courage to look back at. The dress slipped off the branch, didn't fall, didn't spin. It simply dissolved, like a soul too tired to hold its shape. Not wind, not time, just letting go. Thomas stood still, didn't follow, because some melodies, once they miss a beat, they never stop to wait for anyone again. Never again. Never again. The words fell flat. Not promise, not curse, just final. The dress was gone. Only Thomas remained, standing in a nameless room, as the sky slid into the festival night. No lanterns were hung, no music played, no one spoke of the day. And yet, everything was ready, as if someone always came back, on time, on beat. The central hall, empty, like a dream, just erased. But she stood there, on cold stone tiles, no shadow, no name, just a form that needed no introduction. Thomas stepped toward her, raised his hand, as he had once done, as if memory itself was guiding every tiny movement. No one spun, no music played, only a deep stillness, like water, untouched. She placed her hand on his. No smile, no words, only held it, as if this wasn't the first time, not the last, but the only one that still remained, in a timeline already falling apart. Then the candles shivered, a rhythm missed. One flame bent sideways, like a throat, swallowing wrong, a story about to erase itself. Thomas stepped back, not by choice. That movement didn't belong to now. It had been recalled from some old copy, a role repeated until it lost all meaning. His heel found the stone. No sound answered. He looked down, still holding the embroidered handkerchief, the thread's color still vivid, but the stitching unraveled. Threads hung loose, like veins refusing to stay under skin. No music took its place, like a song that never got its final note. He looked up. She was still there, but her eyes looked through him. No name, no face, only the vacancy, where recognition should have lived. Memory only needed a heartbeat that still remembered. Thomas understood. The handkerchief, not hers, not his, anymore. Just a song, stitched wrong, and no one left who remembered how to finish it. Once you miss the step, the song remembers without you. And when no one can hold the final word, the waltz itself becomes the storyteller. It continues without anyone to repeat it. Thomas leaned forward. His knees loosened, his shoulders fell. No collapse, no sound, just an image, quietly erased by the very one who once held it. The final candle didn't burn out. It simply disappeared, as if even light had learned how to forget. No sound, no ash, only the echo, silent as a heartbeat, letting go. Silence held, then released, as if the world exhaled. Years later, a young officer was sent to inspect the ruins up north. Once a small village, now erased from every map. No census, no names. No one remembered anyone ever living there. As if that place had only existed in someone's memory, and that someone had already vanished. In a crumbling brick basement, he found 3 objects. A notebook, its spine scorched. An unmarked 8mm film reel. And an embroidered handkerchief. Red thread, folded in half. The thread still held color, but the patterns were gone. No sign of time, no trace of any century. As if they once sat inside a drawer from a moment in time no longer allowed to be named. The drawer smelled faintly of damp ash, like wood that had wept. And when he touched the handkerchief, his fingers trembled, as if he had brushed against something that died. too long ago to still have a name. That night, he loaded the reel into a projector. Light flickered across a cracked wall. A sour tang rose. The kind old film keeps. The frame shook, then settled. Silver crawled up the wall, trying to hold a face. On screen, a man, spinning slowly in an abandoned square. No music, no one beside him, only wind, and his arms wrapped around something unseen, as if leading someone through the last waltz of a lifetime. He turned, like a dancer left behind after the curtain call. Only his heartbeat remained, and memory of a melody no one remembered. Just at the edge of the frame, a flash of white, long hair, a dress brushing the ground. No face, no frame ever caught her standing still, always at the edge, as if she were kept under glass. She drifted like a projection glitch, reels out of sync. The officer frowned. He wasn't sure if that was part of the film or something that had just passed behind his shoulder. He turned. Nothing. But the feeling, like a hand, had just brushed his sleeve. On the wall, a line of text appeared, not belonging to any reel. If you forget, I will remind you. Next time, we will dance. The shutter clicked once, like a heartbeat choosing. Each frame bled silver, as if memory itself was leaking. The next morning, they found the officer unconscious. At the foot of the mountain, his hand still curled upward, as if holding someone's absent palm. No reel, no notebook. The embroidered handkerchief, gone. His name wasn't on the duty roster. No logs, no one on the team remembered sending him out that night. Only one handwritten note remained. In the report from the person who found him, he had a smile on his lips, as if, at last, he had danced. No one remembered he ever left. But that smile belonged to someone who had just returned from a chorus that never had a name. Perhaps the waltz never chose its dancers. It simply waited. And when the hollow inside a soul is wide enough to hold a song the world forgot, it steps in. Some dances end by learning their own last step, and next time it will invite you. Not a choice, a rhythm. Invite you.